Atlantic Council și-a deschis săptămâna aceasta un birou și la București. De ce este România atât de interesantă pentru americani? Ne dăm seama și noi cât de interesanți suntem? Trăim în lumea deciziilor imprevizibile ale lui Donald Trump și a agresiunilor lui Vladimir Putin. Orientul Mijlociu este de regulă instabil. Ce șanse are o țară precum a noastră? Primim răspunsuri de la Frederick Kempe, președinte și CEO al Atlantic Council. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport diplomatic. Frederick Kempe, President and CEO of Atlantic Council, welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
It's an honor to be with you.
Recent, americanii au făcut un pas care ne oferă un rol mai activ în politica globală. Atlantic Council, unul dintre cele mai respectate think tank-uri din SUA, și-a deschis un birou la București. În cercurile în care se discută marile direcții ale politicii internaționale, Atlantic Council contează. Organizația de la Washington reunește experți, foști diplomați, oficiali și lideri din întreaga lume pentru a gândi viitorul relațiilor transatlantice, adică relația dintre Europa și SUA. Depinde de noi cât de mult vom profita de această șansă și de canalul de comunicare directă cu factorii care contează din capitala Americii. Suntem înconjurați de tensiuni, dar putem deveni punctul de întâlnire al calmului, locul în care se conturează strategiile pentru Europa de Est. Prezența Atlantic Council la București înseamnă mai multă vizibilitate pentru România, mai multă influență și, sperăm, idei mai bune pentru viitorul regiunii.
We are talking first of all about the fact that Atlantic Council opened this week an office, a representative office in Bucharest, and I'm curious to find out how come you choose Romania?
Romania is a frontline state in two respects. Certainly in terms of the front lines of freedom of Europe, regarding Black Sea security, regarding Ukraine. In the issue areas we care about, but also geographically, Romania is crucial and is strategically important. We are also interested in working in four areas here. Number one, energy, everything to do with energy and infrastructure. Number two, technology, artificial intelligence. How can we cooperate in areas of artificial intelligence? Number three, the Atlantic Council sweet spots, security, Black Sea security, NATO, how do we work more closely in that? And then number four, Euro-Atlantic integration. So not just your work with NATO, but also your work in the European Union. We're really the strongest in Washington on those questions. Romania is a country of outsized importance because of the role it plays in Europe, in the Black Sea, in terms of the future of Europe, in terms of the transatlantic relationship. So that's why we're here.
And do you think from the meeting you had here in Bucharest, and not only in Bucharest, that we realize how big is our role? Do you feel that we are aware of that?
I don't think sufficiently so. You clearly have just passed through a stressful electoral season. I found that your government leaders are very focused on the moment, focused on internal issues. Maybe less on external issues right now. Your business community is incredibly focused on external issues. And so I was enormously impressed by business leaders I met here and their knowledge of the region, the knowledge of their opportunities, very sophisticated and so I think that they maybe understand the possibilities even better than the political class.
You brought in Romania as well one of your books to be launched here in Romanian language, Berlin 1961, the most dangerous place on earth, because it was the Berlin of the building the wall and the Berlin of the nervous war between Kennedy and Khrushchev. What do you think about Ukraine today? Shall we call it the most dangerous place on the earth in our present time?
I think it is. So I was happy to release the Romanian edition of my book, Berlin 1961. And the way I put it was, Berlin was the epicenter of the Cold War. And it was Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, who called it the most dangerous place on earth. And it was dangerous in two respects. First of all, a war over Berlin could have led to a nuclear exchange. It was also dangerous in the sense if we had lost Berlin at that time, you would have lost the future. The West, it would have been at that point that we lost the Cold War. The fact that Berlin didn't fall gave us the possibility that the Berlin Wall ultimately fell. In 1989, the Soviet Union collapsed, the Warsaw Pact collapsed, the European Union grew, NATO grew, Romania became part of it, obviously Poland, Czechoslovakia, that then became the Czech Republic. But none of that would have happened had we lost Berlin. The same is true now for Ukraine. If we lose Ukraine, much more will be lost. I believe even Romania could be in danger if we lose Ukraine. Certainly the Baltics would be. And we need to understand the stakes are as high now. You know, Berlin is a city, very different than Ukraine. But Ukraine is the front line of freedom. And the Ukrainians are really fighting for our freedoms. And the dream of President George H.W. Bush to create a Europe whole and free can only be accomplished if Ukraine comes out of this war sovereign, independent, free, and able to integrate in Western institutions, the European Union, and hopefully ultimately NATO as well.
We see that now Putin is talking more than President Trump about peace negotiations, or at least ceasefire negotiations. In the same time, he savagely attacks Ukraine daily, basically. Do you think that we'll get that closer to that moment, to the ceasefire, because peace seems far away?
In my own view, Putin doesn't want peace. If he agrees to a ceasefire, it would be because he's getting what he wants ultimately, which is all of Ukraine, that he's moving in that direction. Even the President of the United States, Trump, has said that he believes that Putin might be tapping him, which means he's playing me. He's playing me for time. I hope the President understands even more deeply over time that Putin will only take negotiations seriously when he sees he's losing the war, when he sees he's losing too many people, when he sees there's no chance for him to accomplish the aims that he wants, which is not just regaining Ukraine, but also regaining the Soviet Empire in a different form, to regain much of the space that was lost at the end of the Cold War. I think that's his ambition. And so I think we're a long way away from a peace agreement. And if there were a ceasefire right now, without Putin really serious about going for peace, I'm afraid it might just allow him to rearm and get ready for the next stage of the war.
Because you did mention that Putin wants another type of Soviet empire, and of course you're talking about spheres of influences. They were present in the history of humanity since forever, but they were better defined, especially during the Cold War. Are these spheres of influence changing right now? Because we have extra actors, we have China, we have the Middle East as a whole, we have European Union as an actor, maybe not the strongest one, but is anything changes in this regard?
I think we have the evolution of a multipolar world. Certainly the great powers will play a role. China and the United States, I think, are the two largest powers of their day. But you'll also see middle-sized powers that are playing a bigger role. Turkey, India for sure, Brazil, Indonesia. And so you'll see regional
poles of power.
And also regional institutions. The Abraham Accords in the Middle East, the Quad with
Indo-Pacific, yeah.
India and Japan and Australia in that region. So you'll see more regionalism, you'll see multipolar. It will be a more complex world and not a nice, clean, bipolar world. I don't think we're going back to the U.S.-Soviet period where people are in two opposing camps across the planet in the way they once were.
And because recently it was also the NATO summit, and I saw you actually wrote a piece on Atlantic Council about the summit as the results of the Hague summit. NATO is transforming, is investing a lot now in defense, but is European Union, in your view, going to become more independent and more secure, more depending on itself and less on the United States?
Over time. The European Union has put together this financing package, this defense ambition for 800 billion euros to be spent over 4 years. That's real money. And I think Europe understands that it now has to step up and provide for its own defense. And I think that's a positive thing that President Trump has brought about. It's been a wake-up call. We can't defend you if you're not willing to defend yourselves. What will the money buy? Is there enough production? Can the European Union get out of its own way? The bureaucracy of the European Union has been problematic in the best of times. But the European Union has never been a defense organization, so this is new. And can it deregulate enough to create defense? Can it produce quickly enough to create defense? And then can it partner with the United States enough? Because really it's only going to be a transatlantic defense industrial space that will ultimately be robust enough to protect Europe. I think the good outcome of the NATO summit was the European agreement to come to 5% of GDP spending, which would be a huge increase from 2%. It was 3.5% for core defense, 1.5% for defense-related spending. And over 10 years, but still a massive commitment, even if not all of that gets delivered, even if the bureaucracy gets in the way, and I think both of those things will be true, the move will be forward. What people worry about is, will it be fast enough to save Ukraine? Will Europe get its act together fast enough? But the second part of the NATO summit that was positive was the U.S. really recommitted to Article 5, to the security guarantee for Europe. And it really was almost a quid pro quo. We'll stay part of NATO. We'll stay by our treaty commitments to European defense. But really only if you step up yourselves. And I think American people have to see that. The American leaders have been asking for this for years. President Trump just tends to ask for these things a little bit more colorfully and convincingly than his predecessors, and more often. Yeah.
And do you think that with this condition now we'll see United States re-engaging in helping Ukraine? Because right now the help coming from US is still from the previous package signed by the former Biden administration, and is decreasing. There's a debate in the United States, and there are some, and I count myself in this camp, that think that that Ukraine is fighting our fight, and that the money we spend there, the arms we spend there, save us. It's a small expenditure from our defense budget against a major adversary that threatens to destabilize Europe. There are others who think we're spending too much, it's not our business, it's European business, and the debate is on, and the debate is particularly on inside the Trump administration. What's positive is, there was this disastrous meeting in the Oval Office between President Zelensky and Trump. We moved on from that to a much better relationship now. We've done a critical minerals deal with Ukraine, which also released weapons deliveries, and whatever Ukraine buys will go into the shares that the U.S. will have in that critical minerals deal. So that was positive. The other thing that's positive is, following the NATO summit, we now know that the President will sign a new sanctions bill in the Senate that has 84 co-sponsors. So 84 of 100 senators are ready to co-sponsor this, and that will happen after the 4th of July. That's very positive, to just turn the screws on Russia more if they are unwilling to agree to adjust
a just ceasefire and a just peace with Ukraine. So things are moving in the right direction, but there's still political ambiguity in the United States about Ukraine that is shifting in the right direction, but in my view, not shifting enough or fast enough.
How much of the situation in Ukraine, the entire war and negotiations of ceasefire or peace, are depending actually what's happening from the United States point of view in the Middle East? So
the Middle East, I consider the last couple of weeks two of the best weeks for the Trump administration, either one of its administration. The strike on Iran reestablished deterrence in the Middle East. The president gave Iran 60 days to negotiate a climb down from the effort to create nuclear capability, nuclear weapons capability, and the Iranians didn't do it. The Israeli strikes took place on the 61st day, and then the U.S. president only acted after that to hit the three nuclear sites. And so I think if we could reestablish that kind of deterrence in Europe, that would be a great outcome. Now, for that, you don't need to bomb Russia, and the president doesn't like war. He's not. This is a good side about President Trump. He's not a person who goes willy-nilly into conflict.
He's a negotiator.
And he is determined not to have American soldiers go back into combat. He's very critical of the Iraq situation previously and the Afghan situation previously. But how do you reestablish deterrence with Russia? You do it through two ways: the tough sanctions, the sanctions bill I'm talking about, and also by making sure that Ukraine has what it needs to continue the fight.
And in the end, do you think that in all this play, let's say, USA versus Russia, because it is kind of a Cold War 2.0, will China play a major role?
Well, China is playing a major role in the war in Ukraine. President Xi Jinping and President Putin reached agreement in what they called a no-limits partnership, and that was before the February 2022 invasion. The two countries have never been closer. If you actually look at the defense industrial relationship of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, it is closer now than Mussolini, Hitler, and the Japanese were in the 1930s. The interesting thing is the Trump administration, I think, believes that it can separate China and Russia over time. I think the Trump administration particularly thinks it has opportunities with Russia. I'm not sure I agree, but I think that's part of the reason why President Trump is really trying to explore whether he can reach a peace agreement with Russia, partly because he thinks he can grow more closely together with Russia in an economic sense. He sees great economic opportunities with Russia and in a diplomatic sense.
And if he will withdraw United States from this attempt of getting somewhere with the peace talks in case of Ukraine?
You see signs that the president is losing patience with Putin. He recently even said in a tweet that he thought what Putin was doing was a little crazy when he escalated his strikes on civilian sites. What he's also said is maybe we just have to let these two countries fight it out like children on a playground. These aren't children on a playground.
No,
these people are being killed, and people are being killed because of Russia's aggression. So I hope he doesn't lose interest in the battle, because the U.S. is needed, and I hope he does understand over time that Putin is playing him and playing for time. So you see signs that he's losing patience, but does the loss of patience prompt him to walk away? Or does the loss of patience prompt him to give Ukraine more support? I hope it's give Ukraine more support.
Well, let's hope that. Mr. Kempe, thank you so much for this interview.
My pleasure. Nice talking to you.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe conturile noastre de X și Instagram. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!